Prabhupada ki jai. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thai Gaur Pramanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, Chapter number 3, titled Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. Text number 3. Istvasa Vajapayena Istvasa Vajapayena Brahmistan Abhibhuyacha Brahmistan Abhibhuyacha Brihaspati Savam Nama Brihaspati Savam Nama Samarebe Kratuttamam Samarebe Kratuttamam Istvasa Vajapayena Brahmistan Abhibhuyacha Brihaspati Savam Nama Samarebe Kratuttamam Istvasa Vajapayena Brahmistan Abhibhuyacha Brihaspati Savam Nama Samadebe Kratuttamam. Mataji's. Tosa Vajapayena Istvasa Vajapayena Brahmistana Vibhuyacha Brihaspati Savam Nama Samarebe Kratuttamam Istvasa Vajapayena Brahmistana Vibhuyacha Brihaspati Savam Nama Samarebe Kratuttamam. Word for translation, Istva, after performing Sa Hi Daksha Vajapayena, with a Vajapaya sacrifice, Brahmistan, Shiva and his followers, Abhibhuya, neglecting, Cha and Brihaspati Savam, the Brihaspati Sava, Nama, called, Samarebe, began, Kratutamam, the best of sacrifices. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Shalesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Daksha began a sacrifice called Vajapeya, and he became excessively confident of his support by Lord Brahma. He then performed another great sacrifice named Brihaspati Sava. Purport: in the Vedas it is prescribed that before performing a Brihaspati Sava sacrifice, one should perform the sacrifice named Vajapeya. While performing these sacrifices, however, Daksha neglected great devotees like Lord Shiva. According to Vedic scriptures, the demigods are eligible to participate in yagnas and and share the oblations, but Daksha wanted to avoid them. All sacrifices are intended to pacify Lord Vishnu, but Lord Vishnu includes all his devotees. Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other demigods are all obedient servants of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Vishnu is never satisfied without them. But Daksha, being puffed up with his power, wanted to deprive Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva of participation in the sacrifice, understanding that if one satisfies Vishnu, it is not necessary to satisfy his followers. But that is not the process. Vishnu wants his followers to be satisfied first. Lord Krishna says, Mad Bhakta Puja Bhyadika. The worship of my devotees is better than worship of me. Similarly, in the Shiva Purana, it is stated that the best mode of worship is to offer oblations to Vishnu, but better than that is to worship the devotees of Krishna. Thus, Daksha's determination to neglect Lord Shiva in the sacrifices was not fitting. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksulamitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll read the translation again. Daksha began a sacrifice called Vajapeya, and he became excessively confident of his support by Lord Brahma. He then performed another great sacrifice called Brihaspati Sava. So thank you everyone for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class today. We've just started a new chapter in the 4th canto titled Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. So at the start of the previous chapter, Vidura, he asked Maitra Muni 2 questions in relation to Daksha, Lord Shiva and Sati. So the first question he had asked was, why was there such a bad relationship between Daksha and Lord Shiva? Daksha, he's the son of Brahma, he's very highly qualified, educated, and Lord Shiva, he's a guna avatar of the Lord. He has no enemies. He's so merciful, he's so compassionate. How can such a misunderstanding quarrel happen between 2 such great exalted personalities? Especially with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, he doesn't envy anyone, he's the friend of everyone. He's the most compassionate, he's the most merciful. How can someone have any hatred towards Lord Shiva? So this didn't make sense to Vidura. So he asked Maitra Muni that what caused this tension between Lord Shiva and Daksha. So that first question was answered in the previous chapter, which we've seen over the last few weeks, how one time Daksha was performing a sacrifice, and in that sacrifice all the demigods were present, and Lord Shiva, he was seated with Lord Brahma, and when Daksha, he enters the sacrificial arena, at that time everyone stands up to receive Daksha except for Lord Brahma, who is Daksha's father, and Lord Shiva. And when Daksha, he sees that Shiva is not standing up, although Shiva is his son-in-law married to his daughter, Sati. Then Daksha, he becomes angry. And then he starts blaspheming Lord Shiva. If we read some of the verses, that Daksha speaks against Lord Shiva, it's very, 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 very heavy, very, very cruel, very, very harsh. So very severely he starts offending Lord Shiva and he even curses Lord Shiva. Then Nandishvara, Lord Shiva's carrier, his servant, he becomes angry. Then he curses Daksha and all of his followers. And then Bhrigu in retaliation, from the Brahmana side, they curse the followers of Lord Shiva. So all this we saw in the previous chapter. So that answers the first question. That what caused the tension between Daksha and Lord Shiva. Prabhupada in his purports, he explains that actually Daksha, he was very envious of Lord Shiva because he has this title of being the topmost Prajapati. Bhagavatam explains Brahma had given him the post of being the leader of all the Prajapatis. So he had that very heavy pride of being a great Prajapati. But on the other hand, he's seeing there's this personality called Shiva who doesn't follow, or apparently doesn't seem to follow, all the rules and regulations of the Shastra, doesn't have a home, house, doesn't even dress properly, covers himself with ashes, who associates with ghosts and persons of demoniac qualities. So on the other side, he's seeing this very strange personality called Lord Shiva. But wherever he travels around the universe, he hears everyone glorifying Lord Shiva more than him. So Prabhupada explains, because of this, Daksha he couldn't tolerate, and he was always carrying this envy in his heart. That how come everyone is glorifying Lord Shiva? Who's this Shiva? He doesn't even follow anything properly. He's a madman. He just acts like a crazy person. On the other hand, I am Daksha. I have been appointed the head of all the Prajapatis by Lord Brahma himself. Instead of everyone glorifying me, instead of everyone talking about me, everyone is talking about Shiva. Why is this? So in this way, Prabhupada explains, Daksha, for a long time he was maintaining this envy against Lord Shiva. So he was just looking for an excuse because when someone is envious of another person, they want to bring that person down. So Daksha, all this time, he was just looking for an excuse or loophole by which he can smash Lord Shiva or bring down Lord Shiva. So in the previous chapter, when we saw, when Daksha was entering, and he saw that Lord Shiva didn't stand up to receive him, he took that as an opportunity to vent out his envy on Lord Shiva. So then he started blaspheming Lord Shiva, then he started cursing Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada explains the root cause of all of this was actually Daksha's envy of Lord Shiva. And in last chapter, he couldn't hold it any longer and it burst out, and then he let it out on Lord Shiva. Because of that, he committed a great Vaishnava pride, Prabhupada explains. In the coming chapters, we will see what reaction will come upon Daksha as a result of the offense he committed at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. So the second question that Vidura had asked was, he had heard from Maitreya Muni that Lord Shiva and Sati, they didn't have any progeny because Sati, she committed suicide, she gave up her life due to the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha. So the second question Vidura had asked was that what caused Sati to give up her body? Definitely something very great or something very unbearable must have happened that would have caused Sati to give up her life. Prabhupada explains that Vidura is astonished, because Sati, she's no ordinary person. So generally someone commits suicide because, something very, they're undergoing depression, something very bad happens in their life. And Vidura is astonished, how can, out of everyone, Sati commit suicide? Her husband is Lord Shiva, who can be a better husband for her? So she has the greatest personality in the universe as a husband. Plus, who is her father? Her father is Daksha, a direct son of Lord Brahma. So from both angles, she's coming from such great parentage, and she has the best of all husbands. She has so much wealth, opulence, everything in her favor. So how can someone of such high caliber, such high qualifications, association, how can she commit suicide? So this again didn't make sense to Vidura. So again he inquires that what actually happened between Daksha and Shiva that caused Sati to give up her body. So that second question, Prabhupada explains, will be answered in this chapter. So after Daksha curses Lord Shiva, he leaves the arena. Then there is cursing between the followers of Lord Shiva and the Brahmanas. And then Lord Shiva, he's witnessing all this. And Lord Shiva is morose or sad to see all this cursing and bad mouthing going on between the Brahmanas and his followers. And Lord Shiva, he just leaves the arena without speaking anything. Prabhupada explains that Lord Shiva, he could understand that in this situation there's no point speaking, so much has been done. It's best to just leave the arena, and that way things will settle down. So he just left the arena. Then whoever else was left in the arena or in the sacrifice, they continued on the sacrifice for many thousands of years to please Lord Vishnu. So in that way the previous chapter ends. Now in this chapter we're hearing that after this, Daksha, he began another sacrifice. And this sacrifice name was Vajapeya. And it is said, Prabhupada explains, that this sacrifice is a preliminary sacrifice which is supposed to be done before performing a Brihaspati Sava sacrifice, which is another Vedic sacrifice. So Daksha, on the other side, he starts another sacrifice for pleasing Vishnu. But this time in this sacrifice, so generally the etiquette is, whenever you do any Vedic sacrifice, the sacrifice is done for the pleasure of Vishnu. But at the same time, all the demigods, they're invited to take part in the sacrifice. So that's proper etiquette, and one offers respect to all the demigods. So that's the proper etiquette, but Prabhupada explains, Daksha, because of his envy and hatred towards Lord Shiva, in this new sacrifice which he starts, he doesn't invite Lord Shiva. Purposely he neglects Lord Shiva. In that way, further causing more offense at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. And what is his mindset? Prabhupada explains in the purport. Daksha is saying, or he's thinking in his mind, that purpose of all sacrifice is to please Vishnu. So I'll do a new sacrifice. I will please Vishnu. No need to invite Lord Shiva or Brahma. I can neglect them. I don't need to invite them. I'll just do it for Vishnu. Vishnu will be pleased. I will get the results. I will enjoy. And everything is nice. But Prabhupada explains this is actually wrong mentality. Prabhupada says worship of Vishnu means worship of Vishnu's devotees also. Prabhupada explains Vishnu or Krishna, he is never alone. Krishna is always there, surrounded by all of his devotees. So Prabhupada says there's no such thing that I will only worship Vishnu, I will only respect Krishna, but I won't respect and worship Krishna's devotees. Prabhupada says one does like that, Krishna won't be very happy, and Krishna won't accept one's service. In the previous canto, Lord Kapiladev, in his instructions to Mother Devahuti, he's explaining about the importance of giving respect to different living entities. Not just giving respect to other devotees, not just giving respect to human beings, but Lord Kapiladev explains that a devotee, he should give respect to all living entities. The animals, the birds, the beasts, even ants, and in bugs and insects. And Lord Kapiladev, he speaks one very heavy verse in that section. He says that if a devotee is performing puja or worship of Krishna in the temple, but if he doesn't show proper respect to other living entities, then I consider his worship to be as good as someone doing a fire sacrifice and putting ashes into the fire sacrifice. That's how good his worship is. So whenever we do any yajna, we offer oblations of ghee and grains and so on and so forth, and that goes into the mouth of Lord Vishnu. But Lord Kapiladev says, if someone is worshipping me but doesn't give proper respect to other living entities, then that is as good as someone doing a yajna, but instead of pouring oblations into fire, they're just pouring oblations into a pile of ashes. So one will think, what will you gain if you just have a pile of ashes and you put ghee on the ashes, you put, barley, rice, dal, there's no benefit. So it's just a waste of time. So in the same way, Lord Vishnu says, or Lord Kapiladev explains, that if someone is worshipping me and following all the rules and regulations very perfectly, doing my deity worship, but is not showing proper respect to other living entities, not just other Vaishnavas or human beings, but he says all living entities. He doesn't show proper respect to other living entities, then his worship is useless. And I completely reject his worship. He's just simply wasting his time. So very heavy statement Lord Kapila Dev mentions in the previous canto. So same thing Daksha is doing. He's thinking in his mind, everything is meant for Vishnu, so I'll just do this sacrifice, I'll just worship Vishnu, I'll neglect Lord Shiva, I won't invite him, I won't give him his share, I can neglect him, no problem, because Vishnu is the topmost, if he is satisfied, everything is good. But Prabhupada explains he doesn't understand that Vishnu means Vishnu's devotees. You can't neglect one and then worship Vishnu. Vishnu doesn't accept it like that. Prabhupada, he gives the example, many times we would say, like, if you love me, you have to love my dog. Just like when we go in streets and we distribute books, there'll be many people walking with their dogs. And Navinirad Prabhu says that one easy way to sell books to people with dogs is that you just glorify their dog. Because people, they have so much love for their dog. If you just glorify their dog, they'll feel very happy. Wow, this person, he's appreciating my dog, he's such a nice person. And then that way you break the ice with them, and then you show the book and they will buy the book. They'll be obliged, because this person has glorified my dog. Now I'm obliged to hear what this person has to say, and okay, he's asking for some money, donation, and okay, I'll give him something, I'll take this book. So that's what we do on the streets. Someone is coming with a nice dog, we say, wow, such a cute dog, what breed is he? Is he a Jack Russell, or, how old is he? Such a nice dog, what's his name? And then you pat the dog, and then immediately when you start glorifying the dog, you see the expression. They'll have like a big smile on their face. And they will feel like so happy. Immediately the ice is broken. So Prabhupada says, if you love me, you love my dog. So if we do something for a person or animal that someone loves, then immediately that person feels very happy. Same way Prabhupada gives the example of a father and his son or child. A father, he loves his child so much that if someone does something very nice for his child, the father feels very, very happy. And the father feels very, very obliged to that person. So Prabhupada says, quicker way to please the father is not to give the father a gift, but to give the son of the father a gift. Then the father feels more happy, because the father, he loves the child so much. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains that Krishna, he loves his devotees so much. He loves his devotees more than his very self. Again in third canto, previous canto, in the conversation between Vishnu and the four Kumaras and Jai and Vijay, over there Vishnu, he explains to the four Kumaras that I love my devotee so much that if my hand is causing some inconvenience for my devotees, then I am ready to chop off my hand. Like that Vishnu says to the four Kumaras, that my devotee is so dear to me that if somehow or other my hand is causing some inconvenience to my devotees or causing some distress to another devotee, I will happily chop off my arm. Like that Lord Vishnu says in one verse to the four Kumaras. And like this, there's another verse he says to the four Kumaras is that I take more pleasure in offerings through the mouth of the Brahmanas than offerings which are made into a fire sacrifice. So in a fire sacrifice, the fire that represents the mouth of Vishnu, and when we offer oblations, we're offering different items into the mouth of Lord Vishnu. But Lord Vishnu says, I am more pleased when you offer oblations to me through the mouth of Brahmanas, which means when you feed the Vaishnavas or Brahmanas, then Vishnu says, I take more pleasure. So in this way, throughout Bhagavatam, there are so many verses where Lord Vishnu or Krishna is trying to emphasize that worship of his devotees is greater than worship of him. Same way, 9th canto, there's the story of Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni comes all the way to Vaikuntha asking Lord Vishnu for help to save him from Sudarshan Chakra. And Lord Vishnu says, I can't do anything, my devotees are greater than me. You have to ask forgiveness from my devotee. And if he forgives you, then Sudarshana will stop chasing after you. So again, Vishnu is showing from this Leela that the greatness of his devotees. And Lord Vishnu tells Durvasa Muni that my devotees are in my heart, and I am always in the heart of my devotees. My devotees don't know anything else except for me, and I don't know anything else except for my devotees. So in this way, Vishnu is explaining or helping Durvasa Muni understand the glories of his devotees, the importance of his devotees. this pastime also of Haridas Thakur, how he was being beaten in 22 marketplaces. Then Vishnu, he sends Sudarshan Chakra to kill all those soldiers of the Muslim ruler back then. And Sudarshan Chakra is coming, and Haridas Thakur, while he's being beaten, internally in his mind he is praying that, my dear Lord, please forgive these soldiers. They're simply acting out of ignorance. So you please forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And please forgive their offenses. Please don't do anything bad to them. Like this, Haridas Thakur is praying for the benefit of those people who are actually beating him. So Acharyas explains, Sudarshan Chakra comes to kill all the Muslim soldiers, but then he's seeing Haridas Thakur who is praying that please don't kill these soldiers, please forgive them. They're just simply ignorant, just like little children. They don't know what they're doing. Just like little children, if they do something wrong out of ignorance, someone doesn't take it so seriously, they're just doing out of ignorance. Same way these guys, they're just ignorant like little children. That's why they're beating me. So don't punish them, please don't do anything bad. So then Sudarshan Chakra, because Haridas Thakur is praying like this, he can't kill them and he goes back to Vishnu. Then Vishnu asks, how come you came back? I told you to kill them, they're beating our devotee Haridas Thakur. How can you leave Haridas Thakur like that and come back? Then Sudarshan Chakra tells Vishnu that, my dear Lord, you say in the Shastras that your devotees are higher than you, and worshipping your devotees, following your devotees is greater than worship of you. You told me to kill them, but your devotee is saying don't kill them. Out of the two instructions, your devotee's instruction is more important. So therefore I didn't kill them, therefore I came back. So again, Sudarshan Chakra is highlighting the same principle that Prabhupada is explaining in the purport. The worship of Krishna's devotees is greater than worship of Krishna himself. So this verse Prabhupada is quoting in the purport. This verse comes in the 11th canto in Uddhava Gita. Krishna speaks this verse to Uddhava. And Prabhupada also quoting another verse from Shiva Purana by Lord Shiva himself, which he speaks to Mother Parvati. Aradhanam Sarvesham Vishnu Aradhanam Param Tasmat Parataram Devi Tari Anam Samachara. That, my dear Parvati, out of all types of worship, worship of Vishnu is topmost. But even greater than worship of Vishnu is worship of Vishnu's devotees. So in this way, Prabhupada is explaining this in the purport. How Krishna, he always, out of his deep love for his devotees, he always wants more worship to come to his devotees. He always wants his devotees to get more glorification. And Prabhupada, he gives the example in other purports of Hanuman. Prabhupada says, when Lord Ramachandra, when he wanted to go to Lanka, what did he do? He had to build a bridge to go to Lanka. And he took so much time and effort. All these monkey soldiers, they're coming and putting rock after rock. And after so much time and effort, Lord Ramachandra is able to cross the ocean and go to Lanka. But Prabhupada says, look on the other side at Hanuman. When Hanuman wanted to go to Lanka, how did he go? He didn't have to build a bridge. He just took one jump and he came to the other side, to Lanka. So Prabhupada says, if you compare Lord Ramachandra and Hanuman, it seems that Hanuman is more powerful than Ramachandra. Lord Ramachandra had to go through so much austerity and hard work, build a bridge, and then he had to walk over the bridge. But Hanuman, just like that, in a second, one jump, he's there in Lanka. So if you look at it externally, Prabhupada says Hanuman is more powerful than Lord Ramachandra. And the reason for this, Prabhupada explains, that the Supreme Lord, out of love for his devotees, he always does his leelas in such a way in which his devotees look more glorious than himself. So he always wants more glory to come to his devotees. So he'll always do his pastime in such a way in which his devotees are glorified more. Same way, one time, actually earlier on the first canto, Prabhupada mentions same thing with Bhishma Dev. That Yudhishthira Maharaj, after the battle of Kurukshetra, he was completely lamenting and in depression that because of me, so many millions and millions of soldiers died. I am responsible. I was greedy for a kingdom. Out of his humility, he's lamenting like this. And he's given so many great personalities. They came and they spoke spiritual wisdom to pacify Yudhishthira Maharaj. Vyasadeva himself came, Narad Muni came, Krishna himself tried to pacify Maharaj Yudhishthira, but no one could pacify him. Then finally he came to Bhishma Dev, and then Bhishma Dev was able to dispel the illusion that was covering Maharaj Yudhishthira. So Prabhupada says, before the battle, Arjuna was an illusion by the will of Krishna. And after the battle finished, Krishna put Maharaj Yudhishthira in illusion by making him lament that, why did I kill so many people? It's all my fault. So when he hears from Bhishma Dev, at that time, his illusion is dispelled. And Prabhupada explains, how is it that Krishna tried to pacify Bhishma Dev, but Maharaj Yudhishthira, nothing went too hard, he couldn't be pacified. On the other hand, Bhishma Dev talks and immediately he gets convinced, immediately he understands everything. So Prabhupada explains that Krishna, he wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev as a very great personality. So therefore, Prabhupada explains that Krishna, when he was speaking to Maharaj Yudhishthira, he made sure as the super soul in Yudhishthira's heart, he made sure that whatever he was speaking didn't enter into his heart. Whatever he's speaking just come out through the other ear of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Same way Krishna made sure that when Vyasadeva was preaching to Yudhishthira Maharaj, Krishna made sure as super soul that whatever Vyasadeva was speaking doesn't touch the heart of Maharaj Yudhishthira. But then when he comes to Bhishma Dev, then at that time Krishna allows whatever Bhishma Dev is speaking to enter into Maharaj Yudhishthira's heart. In this way, Prabhupada explains, Krishna, he wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. So again, this is another pastime where Krishna's devotees are being put in a higher position than Krishna himself. Because on one hand, Bhishma is doing something but Krishna himself couldn't do. Krishna himself couldn't pacify Yudhishthira, but Bhishma Dev could. So in this way, again, the devotee's position is being put higher than Krishna himself. So in this way, Prabhupada explains that this is Krishna's mood, this is Krishna's nature. He always wants to glorify his devotees more. So he'll always do his pastimes in such a way that his devotees look more glorious than himself. Prabhupada gives the example of a father and a son. The father, he always wants his son to be more successful than himself. If the father is a very successful businessman, the father will desire that his son become even more of a successful businessman than himself. So that same mood Krishna has with his devotees. Another time, Prabhupada, he was on a morning walk, and one devotee, he asked this question to Prabhupada. And that Srila Prabhupada, in the end of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, Krishna, he instructs everyone that one shouldn't preach this message, or one shouldn't give this message to someone who's not austere, to someone who's not envious, to someone who is not your devotee. So like this, Krishna, very clearly, he gives this instruction at the end of Gita, that one shouldn't give this knowledge to someone who is envious, to someone who is not your devotee, to someone who is not pious, to someone who is not austere. But we are going out on the streets and we're freely distributing these books to anyone and everyone. And pretty much 99% of the people we are distributing these books to, they're either envious, not devotees, not austere, not pious. So how is this, Prabhupada? It seems like we're going against the instruction of Krishna. It seems like we're going against Krishna's instruction. It seems like we're going against Shastra. So how is this so? Like this devotee, he asked this nice question to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's answer was very nice. Prabhupada said that the devotee of the Lord is more merciful than Krishna himself by the will of Krishna. So I'll repeat this again. The devotee of the Lord is more merciful than Krishna by the will of Krishna. So Krishna, he wants his devotees to be more merciful than himself so that his devotees would get glorified more. So just like Krishna, he wants Hanuman to go to Lanka just with one jump, so Hanuman gets glorified more than himself as Lord Ramachandra. In the same way, Krishna, he wants his devotees to get glorified more, to being even more merciful than himself. So by this will of Krishna, Krishna's devotees act as more merciful than Krishna himself. So like this, Prabhupada explains very nicely that yes, Krishna says we shouldn't give this message to someone who is not devotees. But Krishna wants Krishna's devotees are more merciful than himself by the will of Krishna. So that is Krishna's desire. He wants his devotees to display even more compassion, even more mercy than himself. Why? So in that way, his devotees will get glorified more as being even more merciful and compassionate. So that is the mood of Krishna, which Daksha didn't understand. So that's why Daksha is thinking in this chapter that I will do a sacrifice, I'll just worship Vishnu. No need to satisfy his followers or his devotees like Lord Shiva. Sacrifice meant for Vishnu's power, I'll just worship Vishnu. What is the need of respecting his followers? But as we're discussing, Prabhupada explains, actually worship of Vishnu means worship of Vishnu's devotees. In fact, worship of Vishnu's devotees is even greater. That is the fast track in devotional service. Like we hear, there's 3 levels of devotees. The beginning devotee, Kanishta devotee, he just worships Vishnu, but he doesn't understand the value of devotees, and he doesn't properly show respect to other Vaishnavas or Vaishnavis. Then the higher level devotee, the Madhyamadikari, he is one who worships Krishna, but also he maintains good relationship with other devotees. He understands the importance of other Vaishnavas. So that is the primary characteristic that differentiates a new devotee or a neophyte devotee from a higher level devotee. A neophyte devotee, he doesn't understand the importance of Vaishnavas. A higher level devotee, he understands the importance of Vaishnavas. So Daksha, he is a devotee, but based on his actions and mentality, we can say he's acting in the Kanishta level platform of bhakti, the neophyte stage, where he's thinking, I'll just worship Vishnu, no need for showing respect and worship to Vishnu's devotees. So that's pretty much today's verse. Today is also the appearance day of Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami and the disappearance day of Ramachandra Kaviraj. And so I thought we'll discuss a bit about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. There's this nice book by His Holiness Radha Maharaj. It's called Vrindavan Yatra. And volume 1 is about the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. So these are actually lectures that Maharaj gave about the Goswamis of Vrindavan in his Vrindavan Yatra. And devotees have transcribed those lectures and put them together in a nice book. So there's like, I think 6 different chapters. Each chapter talks about one of the 6 Goswamis. So I thought we'll just read a bit about Gopal Bhatta Goswami from this book. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he's obviously famously known as one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. We have him here on our altar. And he was actually the son of Venkata Bhatta, who was actually a devotee of Lord Narayan and Lakshmi Devi. And Venkata Bhatta, his residence was right there next to in Sri Rangam. So the famous Sri Rangam where Lord Ranganath is in South India. So that's where Venkata Bhatta lived. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his tour of South India, he comes by Sri Rangam. So he stops by Sri Rangam, then he enters into the temple of Ranganath. Prabhupada explains that this temple of Lord Ranganath is like the biggest temple in the whole of India. So huge temple. So when Mahaprabhu he enters into the temple room, he sees Lord Ranganath, he starts singing and dancing in ecstasy in front of Lord Ranganath. And at that time, there was this devotee, the father of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Venkata Bhatta. He sees this very beautiful, effulgent sannyasi who he has never seen before enter into temple room and singing and dancing in so much pure love and devotion and ecstasy in front of Lord Ranganath. And he's so mesmerized by his beauty, by his devotion, that immediately he comes and falls at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, and then he starts begging him that please come to my home for prasad and please come stay with me. So like this he begs, he invites Chaitanya Mahaprabhu home, and then as the etiquette is, he washes the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he takes the water, sprinkles on the heads of all of his family members, and then he personally drinks the Chandramrit of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he also gives the Chandramrit to his son, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who at that time was only 7 years old. So he was just a little boy. So this is the first time Gopal Bhatta Goswami meets Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was just a small boy, and it's given, Rana Maharaj explains, when he took the Chandramrit. So he's watching his father wash this sannyasi's lotus feet, and the father gives him the Chandramrit, of this sannyasi Mahaprabhu and is given when Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he drinks the Chandramrita of Mahaprabhu, he immediately goes into ecstasy. And tears start shooting out of his eyes. And he just becomes mad in Krishna Prema. And is given from that day onwards, he was just so attached to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Venkata Bhatta, he requested Mahaprabhu that now is Chaturmasya, the 4 months of the rainy season. So generally at this time, sannyasis, they're not supposed to travel. They're supposed to stay in one place and do sadhana, do bhajan. So Venkata Bhatta told Mahaprabhu that now is the Chaturmasya, so you're not supposed to travel, so why not stay in my house for the next 4 months? Stay in my house, I will supply you prasad, everything, we will arrange everything for you. And Mahaprabhu, he agrees. And it's given for the next 4 months. Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he had very intimate association with Mahaprabhu. He developed deep attachment for Mahaprabhu, and day and night, he just used to be with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Day and night, he just used to do all sorts of menial services for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as a small 7-year-old boy. So like this, he was serving Mahaprabhu with great love and devotion. He was getting so much attached. And Radha Maharaj, he explains that when Venkata Bhatta, he saw this, he was so happy and pleased to see his son develop so much attachment to this great Vaishnava. And Maharaj explains that generally we see that parents, they will become happy when their children, they do very good in school, when they get very high grades, or when they get into a good school or university, get a high marks, or nice degree, or get a good job. Then the parents feel very happy and jolly. But Maharaj says, one should become even more jolly and happy when they see their children developing attachment to Vaishnavas, when they see their children developing attachment to great Vaishnavas and developing in their spiritual life. One should become even more happy and pleased. And Maharaj explains this was demonstrated by Venkata Bhatta, that he didn't become scared, oh, my son is becoming attached to this great sannyasi, what will happen to his education, what will happen to his career. He wasn't thinking like that. Instead, he was very happy that, okay, my son is being attached to this great Vaishnava, he'll advance very nicely in bhakti. So Maharaj, in the same way, he explains, as parents, we should be happy to see us children becoming attached to the Vaishnavas, becoming attached to Bhagavatam, becoming attached, coming to temple, serving the Vaishnavas, so on and so forth. That should be of more pleasure to us than our children just getting good grades. So like this, it was going on for a long time. And one day, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, just as a small boy, this thought came into his mind. He was thinking that this realization came to his heart, that this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's none other than Krishna himself. What is he doing in the dress of a sannyasi? How is my Supreme Lord, taken this vow of sannyas? I can't tolerate this. The Supreme Lord shaving off his beautiful black curly hair, taking up this role as a very austere sannyasi, sleeping on the ground. He is Krishna, he is my Supreme Worshipful Lord. How can he take up this role as a sannyasi? I can't tolerate, I can't bear to think about this. And then he started condemning himself. He started thinking that, I'm so sinful and fallen that I couldn't witness Mahaprabhu in his years as a grasta in Navadvip. I'm so fallen, I couldn't see Mahaprabhu with his beautiful curly black hair performing his pastimes in Navadvip. Instead, I have to see Krishna himself take up this very harsh role as a sannyasi, Krishna with his hair shaved off. So this was paining his heart. And he was given every night, he used to lament like this and just weep and weep and weep, thinking, how can my dear Lord take sannyas? How can this be possible? So like this, he was crying every night and weeping and lamenting. Then one night, he had a dream. And in that dream, he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Not in his dress as a sannyasi, but as a Navadvip Chandra. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with beautiful curly black hair in Navadvip in Bengal. And along with Mahaprabhu, he saw Mahaprabhu's associates. He saw Nityananda Prabhu, he saw Advaita Acharya and other associates. And he was walking alongside of them. And then Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, they were coming to him, just about to embrace him. And just as they were about to embrace him, he woke up from the dream. And when he woke up, he was in so much ecstasy. Immediately he ran to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was living in his house. So immediately he goes and runs to Mahaprabhu, falls at Mahaprabhu's feet, and when he looks up at Mahaprabhu, he sees actually Krishna himself. Mahaprabhu gives him darshan of Shamsundar Krishna. And immediately he is completely mesmerized by the beauty of Shamsundar Krishna holding his flute. And then immediately the vision changes, and then he sees Navadvip Chandra. Then he sees Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Grasta ashram, with long, beautiful, curly black hair, wearing beautiful silk, yellow dhoti, with a beautiful garland and jewels, very nicely decorated, like we have in our altar also, Gaur Nitai. So like this, he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then again the vision changes, then he sees Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi. And then he becomes so ecstatic, he starts crying out of ecstasy, and Mahaprabhu also out of deep love for Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who is only 7 years old at this time. He's also crying out of deep love. And is given, both of them, they wet each other, or they soak each other with their tears. And then Mahaprabhu tells Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he gives him his first instruction, that you go to Vrindavan, and in Vrindavan are two of my very dear eternal associates, Rupa and Sanatan. You go and you serve under them. You become their servants, and I have ordered them to write shastras, to write lots and lots of books about the principles of devotional service. You assist them in their devotional service, you go to Vrindavan, and you, after Rupa and Sanatan write these books, you will also be a great devotee. You will have disciples coming from all around the world. You will have great wealth and influence. Using your influence, you distribute the books that Rupa and Sanatan Goswami write. So like this, he gave instruction to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. But he told him, not now, in the future. You do like this. Now, you serve your parents. Your parents are pure devotees of the Lord. You serve your parents. When your parents leave this world and go back home, back to Godhead, at that time you leave your home, and at that time you go to Vrindavan. And you assist Rupa and Sanatan Goswami in their service, and after they write their books, then you take up the task of distributing these books around India and all over the world. So this instruction, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So in this way, the 4 months went by. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in his house for 4 months, and it's given Venkata Bhatta. He had two brothers, Trimala Bhatta and Prabodhananda Saraswati. So they were also soaking in the association of Mahaprabhu. Then after 4 months, much to their lamentation, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he left. And previously they were devotees of Lakshmi Narayan, but after, understandably so, after association Mahaprabhu, they all became pure devotees of Radha Krishna. And a very beautiful conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Venkata Bhatta is very elaborately described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaves, then Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he takes initiation from his uncle, Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur. So Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur's samadhi one can see in Vrindavan. It's right next to Kalia Ghat, near the old temple of Madan Mohanji, the samadhi of Sanatana Goswami. So he takes initiation from his uncle, Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, and he studies all the shastras under his uncle, and then he becomes a very great scholar actually, and he becomes famous all around India for his scholarship. And it's given whenever he would give discourses or talks or lectures, he would simply just glorify the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he would simply just glorify Mahaprabhu in his talks. So like this, many years passed. He was serving his parents, studying under Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur. And then finally the day came when his parents, they left their body and went back home, back to Godhead. And at that time he left his place near near the temple of Lord Ranganath, and then he made his way to Vrindavan. When he came to Vrindavan, he was very joyously received by Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, and they embraced him and accepted him as one of their dear brothers. And immediately they wrote a letter to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, telling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how Gopal Bhatta Goswami has arrived And they started glorifying. In the letter, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they're glorifying Gopal Bhatta. That what a jewel of a devotee this Gopal Bhatta is. He's such an amazing devotee. We're simply astonished with his Vaishnava qualities. Like this, they glorify. And when Mahaprabhu receives this letter in Jagannath Puri, he's so pleased and happy. And then Mahaprabhu starts glorifying Gopal Bhatta Goswami to his associates in Jagannath Puri. And then Mahaprabhu, he wants to, out of his deep love for Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he then sends some gifts to Vrindavan for Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He sends his own loincloth, and along with that, Mahaprabhu had a wooden seat on which Mahaprabhu used to sit and do his worship of Krishna. So his own personal wooden seat, which he used for his puja, Mahaprabhu sent to Vrindavan to be given to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami received these gifts from Mahaprabhu and is given for the rest of his life. He used to worship that wooden seat of Mahaprabhu as non-different from Mahaprabhu. And that wooden seat one can still see in the Radhan Raman temple in Vrindavan today, which is the temple of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So in this way, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he settled in Vrindavan. And devotees, they used to hear Mahaprabhu's pastimes from Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because he witnessed Mahaprabhu's pastimes in South India, especially in Sri Rangam, for 4 months. He had so much intimate association with Mahaprabhu. So all those beautiful Leelas pastimes he saw of Mahaprabhu in Sri Rangam, he narrated to the Goswamis. And these Goswami, they had never heard of these pastimes. So like this, they heard these beautiful pastimes of Mahaprabhu from Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And yes, later on, Krishnaj Kaviraj Goswami, he was instructed by the Vaishnavas of Vrindavan to write Chaitanya Charitamrita. But he understood that before I take up this huge mammoth task of writing this literature about Mahaprabhu's pastimes, I need to get the blessings of all the senior devotees in Vrindavan. So he starts going to all the senior Vaishnavas, getting their blessings. And then he comes to Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami, it's given, he was very, very humble. And he told Krishnaj Kaviraj Goswami, no doubt I will give you my blessings to write this book, but only on one condition. I will give you my blessings if you promise to not write anything about me in your book. So like this he told Krishnaj Kaviraj Goswami. And then Krishnaj Kaviraj Goswami, he agreed. So that's why in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we won't hear anything about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. We'll hear about Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, we'll hear about Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. We'll hear a little bit about Jiva Goswami, because at that time when Krishnaj Kaviraj Goswami was writing, at that time Jiva Goswami was very young, and at that time he had only just arrived in Vrindavan. So that's why only a little bit of Jiva Goswami is mentioned. But there's hardly any, like pretty much nothing mentioned of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, because he had told him that, okay, you can write, but don't mention my name anywhere in your book. So this way he was like so humble. He didn't want any glorification, anyone to ever talk about him. He always wanted to just be in the background. It's given Vaishnava is like salt. He always just stays in the background, and in that way he wants to serve. So that was the mood of Gopal Bhatta Goswami, which is kind of like the opposite of our mood. Our mood is, whenever we do something nice, we want at least one other person to notice, so that way, we will get some respect or some appreciation for the hard work and seva we're doing. But his mood was complete opposite. He didn't want any respect or worship, glorification, nothing to come towards him. He just wanted to be in the background, just serving all the Vaishnavas. And that was his very sincere, humble mood. So this one thing we can pray to Gopal Bhatta Goswami for genuine humility. And one of his famous disciples was Srinivas Acharya, who was one of the first book distributors. So Srinivas Acharya, there's a big history behind him actually, but we're just on 9 o'clock, we won't be able to discuss about him. And I'll stop with this just short story of Radha Raman. So his deity was Radha Raman, and there's a very beautiful history of how he came. So it's given one time he left Vrindavan and he went to the Himalayas on pilgrimage. Then he went to Kala Gandaki river, where he picked up some Shaligram Shilas. Then he thought, I will worship the Shaligram Shilas. Then he went all the way back from Himalayas to Vrindavan. Again, those days, everything is by walk. So he walked all the way to Himalayas, got some Shaligram Shilas, came back to Vrindavan. Then again, when he arrived in Vrindavan, again, out of his humility, he started thinking that, what did I do? Why did I bring these Shaligram Shilas from their place in the Himalayas? I'm not qualified to worship them. I'm so sinful and fallen. I'm not actually qualified to worship them. What have I done? I've done a great offense. I have removed the Supreme Lord from his abode in Kaligandaki river and I brought them here. I'm not qualified to worship them. I've committed a big aparad. And then what did he do? He again walked all the way from Vrindavan back to the Himalayas just to put back the Shaligram Shilas back in the original spot in the river. So he was like very, very humble. So he's there in Kaligandaki river. Again, he has walked all the way back. And then he's putting the Shaligram Shila in the river. As soon as he puts in the river, the Shaligram Shila again jump back and come into his hand. Then again he takes the Shaligram Shilas, he puts in the river, again the Shaligram Shila jump back into his hand. Like this many times this happens. He puts them in the river and they jump out and come into his hand. Then he understands, okay, maybe they want me to worship them in Vrindavan. Maybe they want to come to Vrindavan with me and they want to accept my worship. Then he says, okay, I'll take you. So then he takes them to Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan he worships these Shaligram Shilas with great love and devotion. But he's noticing the other Goswamis, they have beautiful deities of Krishna. And they're, decorating Krishna with beautiful clothes, making garlands, offering bhoga. And then this desire comes in his heart. That would be nice, that I also could worship Krishna like that, make beautiful jewelry for him, make clothes for him, and dress him very nicely, offer garlands. So like this, he was thinking in his mind. And this was on Nishima Chaturdasi. And like this, he goes to sleep. In the morning when he wakes up, he sees a beautiful deity of Krishna standing in front of him. And he's given those Shaligram Shilas which he had, those Shaligram Shilas had combined together and become this form of Krishna, this beautiful deity of Krishna. So this deity of Krishna is known as Radha Raman. It's a self-manifested deity. And this deity manifested himself out of the Shaligram Shila that Gopal Bhatta Goswami used to worship. So that's how Radha Raman came about. So interestingly, our Radha Gopinath's anniversary falls on the day after Nrsimha Chaturdasi. So Radha Raman, their anniversary is also on the same day. So on Nrsimha Chaturdasi night, he was thinking like this, I wish I could dress Krishna, serve him like the other Goswamis. Next day in the morning, Radha Raman, they appear. So Radha Raman's appearance day is the same as our Radha Gopinath. It's the next day after Nrsimha Chaturdasi. Okay, so we're just over time, we'll stop here. Nantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami ki jai. Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tagore Panande. Hari Hari Bol.